can see my screen.
Yeah.
This is the GrammarFlip dashboard, and we have some navigation buttons here on the left, and they're almost placed here chronologically. But you've got your dashboard with your class sections, and we can look at how you actually get started. But to answer your question, it's end of grade testing time, or some schools have grammar tests they have to cover by the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Where I would say the teachers begin, regardless of whether you're at the beginning of the school year, middle of the school year, end of the school year, is to start by building a diagnostic assessment. And we've got a variety of topics here that we think are foundational topics based out of the parts of speech, parts of the sentence, and then mechanics and usage. And we know that this is not all of the topics that we would cover, but these are those foundational topics that if students don't understand these, the rest of the topics are out the window.
Okay, I love right now that, if I'm a new teacher, right? Like if I'm brand new to English language arts, or I came from another subject area, I love that there's really just kind of a handful of things here for me to work with. I don't have to go in and try to figure out what's important. Like You're basically telling us this is what's most important. If you do nothing else, you could start here.
That's right. And we've defaulted these topics for 10 topics. You can see sort of these buttons are toggled on, but you can customize it however you like it. If you are working with, say, high schoolers and you know that they should know objects and prepositions or subject verb agreement, whatever the case is, you can toggle these on. Or if you're working with younger students and you know that we haven't even covered adverbs, I don't expect them to know what they are, you can toggle these off. But you would start here by just building your customizing your diagnostic, and then once the students complete it, and that diagnostic can be completed within one class setting. I mean, we usually say 15 to 20 minutes is plenty of time, depending on the number of topics you assign. But each topic consists of between 5 to 10 questions. And so obviously the more topics you have, the more questions, the longer it will take. But if you were to use all of the topics, less than a class period.
Okay. That's comforting.
Exactly. Yeah, it's not to
not like a 3-day shut down the campus, like diagnostic. I've seen tests like those, so this is good news.
But the great thing is, once the diagnostic is completed, I've just got a handful of fictional students
samples,
here. You can see where the class is performed on topics. It's pretty interactive, so you can look at how the entire class performed on nouns. So like if you know that, all right, we've got here Big Brother, scored 40% on his nouns. Holden wasn't even in class. Holden Caulfield, those
that makes sense.
Catching the Rye, or Tom Sawyer, he played hooky too.
Right.
You can immediately see which students, what percentage of the class understands which topics.
Okay.
And you can also drill down to a specific student level where you can see how this individual student scored among these diagnostic assessments and see their answers and how they responded to those questions.
So at a glance, so if I've got 35 seconds before my next class comes in, I can very quickly visually see, okay, I know I'm going to hit these 3 things.
Exactly. And so that would take you over to the view lessons page. I guess I should say it'll take you to the customized lessons page where you can actually assign those lessons to each class section. So you can toggle them on, toggle them off, customize it however you prefer.
And then within those, so those are the lessons. So like how many nouns and proper nouns lessons would there be?
Right. Well, let's jump in. So when we look at the lessons, we have 3 levels. We call level 1 foundations, level 2 we call them building blocks, and level 3 we call them advanced topics. And when I first created GrammarFlip, these levels were not there, but I always love hearing feedback from teachers, and that's how GrammarFlip has grown over the years, is getting that feedback from teachers, because I wanted to create something that teachers find helpful, not something that I think is going to be helpful. So I had a lot of feedback saying, hey, we need a little help. Could you put these lessons into into some organization where if I'm an elementary school teacher, I should teach these. If I'm a middle school teacher, I should teach these. If I'm high school, I should cover these. And that varies obviously from classroom to classroom, state to state, country to country, wherever it might be. But there does seem to be a little gathering of topics on some certain levels. So this is just guidance, but level 1, the foundational levels, I've said is perfect for elementary level learners or for middle school students interested in reviewing topics.
Yes.
Level 2 building blocks is sort of that bread and butter middle school student. These are the topics that really need to be covered in middle school. And this is assuming that level 1 has been completed as well. But also for any high school students who need some review of topics, that's level 2. And then level 3 is pretty much for high school level students or middle school students who need that extra challenge. So if we were to just jump in to say level 1, each level has roughly 30 lessons.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so GrammarFlip has 86 topics, individual topics. And so here, and they're placed chronologically, where we feel that if you're a beginning learner, you just jump right in, level 1, start with lesson 1, lesson 2, lesson 3, work chronologically through it.
Okay.
And you can kind of see here some Common Core standards that are placed under there. Now, we don't align intentionally with Common Core, but our topics do address almost all the Common Core standards. So, some teachers will say, hey, I need to align my curriculum with Common Core. Well, you can review these standards and these are the lessons that will apply.
Okay. And, and I was thinking, regardless of what state you're in, regardless of what standards you're tied to, at some point, we're all teaching nouns. We're all going back over objects of a preposition. We're like, those things exist in every state, regardless of what you're teaching. It might be labeled something different, right? Maybe it's not L.3.2a, but
right.
it's going to be called something else. But at the end of the day, okay, we need to review capitalization. My kids aren't getting it. Okay, we need to look at compound, complex, and instructional. My kids just aren't getting it. So that's a really great frame of reference, because that's, I think, what most people are using or referring to as Common Core. But at the same time, we're all teaching nouns.
That's right. And those topics are searchable. You can search for those topics and find them. But yeah, well, let's jump into what a lesson looks like. Oh, and while I'm on this page, I'll just kind of point your attention here. We have an integration where we link out to Kahoot. And if you're not familiar with Kahoot, it's
great.
It's an online review game.
Fun.
I mean, kids go nuts. I mean,
it's crazy.
It's amazing. I mean, I think I've said, kids will be jumping out of their seats. I mean, and literally they're jumping out of their seats to answer questions. They get so excited. But anyway, with each GrammarFlip lesson, there's a link out to a Kahoot review game that we've created in Kahoot, and those are publicly accessible as well. You can certainly do a search for those and access them. But if we were to dive into a lesson, this is what it will look like, and I'll just kind of scan through.
Yeah, so they get a little pre-test, and then they have some practice elements, and then there's
That's right. Yeah. So you get a pre-test, and that's the idea. Is you take the pre-test first before you've done anything, and that gives your teacher just a window into what you already know prior to having viewed the lesson, prior to having taken any practice exercises.
So rather than I'm going to teach the lesson and you're going to pay attention to the lesson, and then down the road at some point I'm going to test you to see if you know the information or not, you could do the pre-test now, and then you could skip and just go to the next lesson if you don't need anything else, right?
That's right. That's right. If your teacher feels, if you score, 100% on the pretest or 80% or whatever percentage, then you can go ahead and move on to the next lesson. You've demonstrated to me that you understand that concept. And again, I don't want to waste your time. Let's make efficient use of our time.
Yes.
So yeah, the idea is to take a pretest, and if you were to click on there, some of the questions are multiple choice, some are fill in the blank, some are correct, incorrect, whatever it might be.
Okay.
And we might type in an answer, and oh well, this is the pretest. So it doesn't actually, the pretest doesn't give the students the responses, but what we'll do is we'll look at a quick practice exercise. You can kind of see the response. So we have Graham, that's Graham, our owl. He's a lot of fun. He provides feedback to the students that they got it right, or, you know, they may have gotten it wrong. And,
okay.
and so that's kind of a fun interaction with kids that students like. And we'll jump into badges in just a second. But
okay.
Anyway, the idea is that with each lesson, you get a pre-test, 3 sets of practice exercises, a video lesson, and you can kind of hear me there. We've got a couple of instructors there providing the lesson. So it's an instructional lesson that provides some inking, you know, a screencast of concepts. And you've got the slideshow over here on the right for those who just want to review and skim through it pretty quickly. We've also got what we call a grammar and context video, where it's a little more visually engaging and allows the student to see sort of that concept, but in action. It's just, it taps into a different modality of learning.
Okay.
And so those are always kind of fun that the students like, because it's a little more image rich, and it's kind of a fun video, and we try to ham it up a little bit in those videos.
That's great. So at some point, could we talk about some of the writing application?
Yeah.
Oh, and there it is. Okay.
yeah. Perfect timing. So
okay.
So when each lesson comes with a writing prompt, and they vary in terms of length, but it's usually intended to be quick. It's usually the student writing 5 to 10 sentences. The idea is we don't want this to be long. We want to keep it short. We want to see that the student can actually demonstrate their mastery of that topic. So
here it looks like they've got choices, or they're doing all 5 of these, write about the following topics. Okay.
It varies. Yeah, I mean, so the teacher can change it however they like. We provide that prompt for them. The cool thing is the student has written their prompt. The teacher can go into their writing portal.
Okay.
And the writing portal is essentially a grid of all their students and their writing. And this is just a demo here for students. The concept being that when the student comes back into class, and if you're in a one-to-one environment, the teacher will sit with his or her computer, and the students will be with their computers. And the teacher will say, all right, you've watched the video, you've done the practice exercises, now it's time to apply it. Open up your computers. We're going to start the class off, do the writing application activity for lesson 1.7. And so as the students are writing and submitting their work, the teacher can immediately see what these teachers are writing and provide that instant feedback. And we've got what we call quick buttons. The idea is that, you know, if you've got 30 kids in a class or more, you want to be able to respond very quickly and efficiently so that they get that feedback right away. At the same time, it's 30 kids. So you can choose to write comments if you want, or you can use these quick buttons that just says, yep, that looks good, you're on the right track.
Okay. Because sometimes you can glance at something and get a really good indication, okay, this kid's got it, great. But I need to let the student know that. And I myself, if I'm interrupted, I don't want to have to come back to this and think, okay, wait, did I tell him? Wait, did I look at this before? So the quick buttons let me know and let the student know that, yeah, we pretty much checked off on this.
Exactly. Yeah. And you can elect to send individual comments if you want, or you don't have to. Yeah. The idea is that give that student instant feedback to say, you got it, or we need to work. And it triggers to you, okay, the student still doesn't understand it. So I need to focus on Holden. I need to focus on Big Brother here. It looks like Scout's got it. Calpurnia's teaching her great. You know, Romeo's doing great. You know, so anyway, the idea is I like it in this grid format so that the teacher can quickly move from one student to the next in an efficient manner to provide that feedback.
That does look really quick. Never enough time. So could you share with us some data that you've gathered? And it could be based on your own classroom experience, or it could be based on teachers you're working with using GrammarFlip. But what can you share with us that kind of represents, you know, student improvement using GrammarFlip? I mean, we all like that quick win, but as far as long-term improvement over time, what are you seeing? What are you noticing?
Right. So we did a study over the course of a school year, and we discovered that over 80% of students using GrammarFlip showed 183% improvement from their pre-test score, which is what they knew going into GrammarFlip. So before they even started using GrammarFlip, what this pre-test score is, 183% improvement from their pre-test to their post-evaluation score. So meaning a student comes in, they take the pre-test with whatever knowledge they have coming into GrammarFlip, and then they progress through the video, the practice exercises, the writing application activity, the Kahoot review game, the post-evaluation. The post-evaluation is meant to be sort of that guarded quiz the teachers keep, in their file cabinet, so to speak, they can use for a grade. And so by the time the student gets to that post-evaluation, they've completed the pretest, all the practice exercises, or whatever the teacher assigns. And so it's a good indication to say that by the time the student takes that post-evaluation, they've learned all that they can about that topic. And so we were seeing, over 183% improvement rate from that pretest to the post-evaluation for all their topics, all their lesson topics. And I mean, that
just is unreal. Like,
yeah, it was really really
amazing.
cool. Yeah, really cool, and really, a proud moment. And yeah, I mean, we get, feedback from teachers that say, my students told me that, GrammarFlip helped them at their end of the year tests, which is great. I mean, if you're, not to say that use GrammarFlip to teach the test, but that's certainly one measure that schools look at. And, I've had teachers say, I remember one teacher saying, my students can finally string together grammatically correct sentences now. And that was really cool.
Yes. So, and it's yes, like the significant impact on writing, but I can see a significant impact on reading too. The more you're using this, getting, understanding some of these complex type sentences that authors are using that students are exposed to.
Sure. Yeah. And as you move up in the levels of GrammarFlip, those more challenging topics are addressed. How to use compound subjects with or just parallel structure in your writing, or compound complex sentences. So, but yeah, again, like we said, of course you have to have those foundations of grammar as a younger student, and knowing what the terminology is. But again, the goal is to become a better writer and having a better command of your language. And as you progress through GrammarFlip, you cover those more challenging topics that do help you to be a more exact writer, and to find your own voice as a writer, which I think is the goal.
And that's the most empowering right there.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the whole goal, is to just empower your students so that they take learning under their own belts. We try to move away from a teacher-centric classroom to a student-centric classroom. And so students become advocates of their own learning. They feel more responsibility and more empowerment when they can learn at their own level, at their own pace, on their own time frame. Again, it requires those teachers to push them. But yeah, that's the goal, is to really empower students as learners, and to make learning enjoyable. And when you put the power in their hands, it becomes more enjoyable to them.
And they can feel successful too, because with this, you may have students ready for conjunctive adverbs, great, but you may have students who are struggling with commas. And so you can kind of figure out, meet students where they are and help them to feel successful starting out, rather than starting out and already feeling like a failure, which is a terrible feeling. So
exactly. Yeah. And another comment, that teachers would say is, my students finally feel successful with grammar. I mean, I don't know what that feeling successful with grammar. I mean, I'm not sure what the teacher meant exactly by that, but it conveyed to me that there was some transition from not feeling good about oneself to to feeling empowered and feeling like they have more control and understanding of their learning, which I think is fantastic.
So for teachers who are thinking, is there a way I could try this out? How can I get my students on this? Can we talk about what that looks like right now?
Yeah, and before we talk about that, I do want to show, like, Gram is our cool little owl, and this is
I
from
love the owl.
a student's dashboard. And so when students progress through their learning, they get these cool little badges of Gram doing weird stuff and saying funny stuff, and I don't know. Every now and then, we'll get a support ticket from a student saying, "Hey, I want to get the owl with the sunglasses," or something like that.
Oh, really?
Do I get, like they get excited about getting the badges, and we try to keep them, fun and engaging for an elementary learner all the way up to a high school learner.
Oh, I like that. So, okay, so let me ask you this too. So one of my questions, one of the questions that comes up is, what if, like, what kind of support is there if if I can't figure something out? Is there a human for me to talk to? Is there someone who's going to respond to my email if I've got a question about GrammarFlip that I can't figure out inside the platform? And you just mentioned sometimes you'll get a student who submits a support ticket about the owl, like they want the owl with the glasses or whatever. So how does that work? Can students submit support tickets, or teachers, or what does the support look like?
Yeah, those are usually the bolder students that submit support tickets. It is there, for them if need be, but I mean, we encourage you to go to your teacher first, because sometimes, the support question is like, I don't know where to go to. And, we're like, well, ask your teacher. We don't know what your teacher assigned.
Yeah.
But yes, there are a couple of levels of support. A teacher can submit a support ticket, which is the primary way to go. And usually it'll be me or someone. Usually I like to respond to support tickets because it gives me a pulse of what's happening with the program, where teachers are encountering challenges, where students are encountering challenges, if there are any bugs in the system that we need to work out, or it helps me sort of, synthesize all that information and determine what improvements can we make. So I like to spend time on support when I can. So if you're submitting a support ticket, I may be the one that answers. But we have support tickets. We have frequently asked questions that usually resolve issues very quickly. I accept emails directly from teachers. I mean, just feel free to send me an email if you need to. And I can't guarantee a right away response, but a lot of times I'm there and can help. We do have onboarding videos, which helps a teacher get set up, and that's a pretty simple process.
So how quickly could a teacher get set up? From the time they signed up to the time the first student starts, going through the diagnostic?
Right. Very, very quickly. So a teacher would go to our, from the homepage, there's a login button, and it takes you to this separate website, app.grammarflip.com. But you would first start by creating an account. We like for teachers to start a trial because we want to make sure that it's a good experience for you. We don't want you to buy something sight unseen. We want you to get into the sandbox, play with your students, you get in the sandbox and play and see if it's a good fit. Every teacher has their own style. Every teacher has their own classroom, whether you're teaching remotely, whether you're in class, whether you're, blended. So GrammarFlip works in a traditional classroom where you're face-to-face. GrammarFlip works in a remote learning where it's completely flipped and completely remote, no face-to-face. And it works in a blended way. If you're attending school some days of the week and some days you're out, GrammarFlip can work any of those ways. But the first step would be to create a free trial. And all it takes is a name and an email and a password to get started. And we have an integration with Google. So if you use Google Classroom, it's a great way to just have that single sign-on opportunity. And if you do create your account via Google and you use Google Classroom, you can simply synchronize your GrammarFlip account with Google, and it will import all your students and create accounts for them automatically.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Okay.
But and even then, if you're
Wow.
not, it's very simple for students to create an account as well. All you need is a class code, and if you're under 13, you should not use an email address. We say you need to use a non-identifiable username. So
Okay.
a lot of younger students don't have email addresses, and that's fine.
Okay.
If you
Because when
do,
the teacher creates the free account to start with, they get a class code and then students just use that.
that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, teachers will
Okay.
generate a class code, and they can invite their students via email or just verbally direct them, to this website. A lot of teachers will project their screen and say, "Class, follow along with me."
Right.
And again, if students have Google accounts, it's one click, register with Google, and they're in.
Perfect.
So it's a really, really simple process.
Okay, perfect. So then the kids are in, and then they can just start with a diagnostic if they wanted to, or if the teacher's in a time crunch, hey, we've got a grammar benchmark coming up and I still haven't had time to review XYZ, they could actually just assign XYZ, like for practice.
That's right. That's right. You can go straight to the individual lesson. I need to cover these topics before the state test. So let's, toggle these topics on or off, whatever I need to do, and assign those topics to those students.
And I know ideally you want to do the diagnostic first. You want to get, meet every student where they are. But if you're just like, I need help, the test is 3 weeks away, 2 weeks away, then you could at least come in and get that immediate help. And even if you've taught this stuff before, well, I've been teaching this all year long. Sometimes kids need to see the same thing in 16 different ways. And so, well, I already taught simple and complete subjects and predicates. Like I already taught that. I taught that 5 times and they still don't get it. Hey, maybe this will click. I think just seeing things in different ways and hearing things in different ways is so good for kids. You have to see it more than once to really, really get it. If we're struggling, I learned that way too. So.
Yeah, and that's right. And a teacher can, sometimes teachers have a set scope and sequence they have to abide by over the course of the year. You need to cover these, 16 topics. Well, no need to assign a diagnostic. Just go right to those topics and decide to drip them as you need to students.
Okay, so students wouldn't necessarily see all these topics at once. You could drip them out so that it's not overwhelming.
That's right. That's right.
Great.
You can, when you assign them, whatever you toggle to the on position is what students will see, and anything that's in the opposition they won't see yet. So you can activate, deactivate, whatever you need. So yeah, a teacher can really personalize it and have some fun with it.
Okay, that's fantastic. So you've made it very easy to get in, get started. Is that the best recommendation right now for teachers who are raising their hand thinking, okay, I would love to get into this and try it. So the button that they can click on, which depending on what device you're on, there's a button right now, either next to or below this video. So is that button going to take them to the free trial so they can get in?
Yes. Yeah. So I would say start your free trial. And like I said, take a look and see if it's for you. And I know it's helpful. The feedback we get from teachers, you're welcome to read through the reviews and testimonials, and we have videos from teachers, and they've had such positive experiences. I think it would benefit any teacher out there who obviously teaches grammar, writing, anyone who wants to have more valuable use of their class time, wants to be more effective and more engaging with their teaching, and honestly wants a little more time of their own back in their day. Again, I can't tell you how many hours as a teacher I spent working at home on weekends, at night, early mornings. And this just removes a burden from your shoulders. And, it's interesting. I was just reading a book. I love listening to books. I could say books on tape. I'm dating myself. But,
audiobooks.
Audiobooks. Thank you. Yeah. I think it was called Who, Not How. And the concept was, and I think we feel this as teachers a lot, is we immediately go to, how am I going to resolve this problem? How am I going to fix this? How am I going to do this? And we need to move from that mentality from how am I going to do it to who am I going to seek to help me do this? And I know
bringing in other support, bringing in other solutions. You know, that is so true. We put all that weight on our shoulders as if we are the end all be all of everything that has to be done. So what was the name of the book again? Who, Not How?
I think it was called Who, Not How. I'll have to, I may have that reversed somehow, but I think the key words were who and how.
Yeah, like not me necessarily. It's who else in my circle. So GrammarFlip is a who in that scenario. I mean,
that's right. Yeah, learning how to delegate. And I don't know, I always I have perfectionist tendencies. I think as teachers, it's natural to have those perfectionist tendencies. And we always take on a lot of the burden ourselves and think, I can do this, I need to do this. But really it's thinking smarter, not harder. How can I find the resource to take care of this? Because my time is spent more valuably with the students, with this project face to face. I can unload this here so that I can focus on this here. But anyway, just, I don't know, a connection there that just kind of came to mind.
Yeah, no, that's a powerful connection. Who, not how. Even if that's not exactly the title, the concept is, I mean, that's something that will stay with me for the rest of the day.